Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Be me, 15 years old or so. Go hunting with my dad, a couple of his brothers and grandpa. They love doing this, but I would rather not spend nights in the jungle with mosquitoes, snakes, etc. The family owns land in the jungle, somewhere in Pick related. There's a 2-story wooden cabin uphill from a creek in a valley where we hunt peccary, lowland paca and deer. It takes 2 hours to walk to the cabin where dogs and local hunters we are friends are waiting for us. It's a clear sky with a full moon. We split into different game trails in the valley. I'm in a hammock high up a tree and my dad is sitting in a branch next to me with a rifle. We all have walkie-talkies to warn each other if we see something. Suddenly the dogs start barking and we think they found a game. Everybody's on alert. I don't have a gun because I'm a kid, but I have binoculars and a good overview of the valley. Suddenly I hear a loud metallic sound, like a large rusty machine moving about. I notice my dad hears it too and he asks me to give him the walkie-talkie. As he is about to ask if anybody heard it, the dogs go silent. My youngest uncle comes through the walkie-talkies and says, "Hey Anon bro, do you see that light over the creek?" He's on the opposite side of the valley so he can see farther to the east of the valley from where we are. Oldest uncle replies, "Fuck yes, look, it's hovering over the creek. Do you hear the dogs?" Dad and I are listening to the conversation and suddenly the light starts to pass in front of us. It slowly covers over the creek, as if it's following its path. The light is bright white and shines the entire forest like an LED lamp pointing towards small grass. The light makes that metallic sound but not as loud as it did when it showed up. It hovers over our cabin hut for a few seconds and continues down the creek path. The guy running behind the dogs down the valley comes in and says, "Hey, who was shining that light?" The dogs are scared shitless. He thinks they saw a tiger or puma or something. By tiger I mean a small kind of tiger. Don't picture a Bengal tiger. Youngest uncle tells him, "It wasn't us. Something just flew down the creek." Anon bro. My dad. "Did you guys see it?" Dad replies, "Yes, we saw it." My dad and uncles talk for a bit about what to do. Dad wants to return to the cabin because of me. The dogs are scared and crying and won't help with the hunt anymore, so we all come down our spots and towards the cabin. When we get to the cabin there's a strange smell of burnt metal, but everything is in place. It had been maybe 30 to 45 minutes since the light was there. Eventually fall asleep in my hammock and return to the city the next morning. Nothing else happened that night, but everybody was on edge, especially the local who owned the hunting dogs. He had raised them since puppies and he knows they were not afraid of just anything, and not all of them at the same time afraid of the same thing. They all told hunting stories of weird shit that happened to them. Only in 2020 I saw lights like these again, but not exactly similar. Be me, 16 years old. We've been living in Panama City for 10 years now. After renting all this time, we move into our own house in the suburbs towards the west. Spend a lot of time studying because I go to an old renowned private high school where most subjects are taught in English. My room's desk is placed in front of a window, pick absolutely related. I have a rosary hanging from one of the things you spin to open and close the glass windows, pick rel. It's a short, metal rosary my grandma gave me at some point. It doesn't have all the beads, I think just 5 or so. It hangs there and it can't fall because it's like a hook to it. One day I'm studying there in the afternoon and as I sit there, a strong shit smell comes through. Think it's the plumbing or something as they're still building new houses down the road from my place, so trucks come and go all day. Immediately as I lift my head up, the rosary flings through the air 2 to 3 meters towards the door as if somebody had taken it and thrown it. I look at where it is now, thinking to myself, what the fuck? come out of the room and tell Mom, who thinks I should pray more, and we put the rosary back in its place. I didn't feel uneasy or anything when it happened. I'm not a devout Christian, but I respect religious beliefs. Be 17 years old. Having dinner with my parents and my little bro. He's 3 years old. Mum finishes and sits in the living room. I am sitting in front of my brother and my dad between us at the top of the table. Dinner table top is made of glass. This time it doesn't have sheets on top because they're being washed or something. My dad and I are talking while my little bro is eating his dinner slowly. In the middle of our conversation, my dad and I noticed my brother's plastic cup of water starting floating in the air. About 10 to 15 centimeters into the air. Dad and I stop talking and immediately look at the cup. It starts rotating clockwise in the air and begins moving to the side at the same altitude. We're in awe looking at this cup moving while my bro is heads down eating and Mum is watching the TV. After a few seconds that felt like minutes, the cup stopped in the air and dropped slowly on the dinner table. Dad looks at me and says, "Hey, your brother has telepathic powers, aw." My mom asks what we're talking about and we tell her, and she immediately grabs my bro and holds him because she's scared. Dad and I aren't scared but amazed at what just happened, especially because he and I knew that we saw it clearly happen. The only non-paranormal explanation I could come up with was that maybe the water under the cup, due to condensation, and the glass top of the dinner table made the illusion that it had moved. However, there was no water between the point where the cup lifted into the air and the point where it was dropped down. Something moved it in front of us, possibly the same thing that messed with me before and after this event. Be me, 18 years old. Working at a call center for XM radio. Back then you could get call center jobs easily in Panama if you spoke English. I have a late shift at some point, so I'm coming back home at about 10:30 p.m. My parents and little brother are away visiting family on the other side of the country where we used to live, so I'm alone for a long weekend. South Park is on at 11 p.m. on MTV, so when I get home I turn on the living room TV and watch it while I prepare something to eat and lurk on B. Place the 2 remote controllers on the sofa seat, TV and cable box. It's very important to note here that the sofa is made of leatherette and the buttons of the remote controllers are made of that rubbery, plastic material. What I'm trying to get here is that if you place the remote controller's buttons down on the sofa, they won't slide and fall because of grip. All the lights are off except for the TV and the kitchen, which overlooks the living room. As I'm preparing dinner and watching South Park, I hear a remote controller fall from the sofa. I think to myself, that's weird, I put it on the sofa, but I'm not sure how I did it, buttons up or down. Walk to the living room and find one of the remotes on the floor, in front of the sofa. Grab it and put it back in the sofa, not minding what just happened too much. The next night, same routine when I come home. Turn on the TV, but this time I absolutely make sure to shove both remotes between the cushions of the sofa so they won't fall while I am cooking. As I am cooking, the fucking sound of the remote controller falling into the floor, quite hard this time. Chills down my spine. X. Leave everything behind and walk to my room, turning all the lights on as I do. Start telling my buddies on MSN what just happened. Super scared to leave the house now because I'd have to walk past the sofa. Wake up the next morning, go to the living room. The remote was on the floor behind the fucking sofa, under the dinner table at a distance of 2 to 3 meters. Shit my pants. X. Something threw the remote so hard the batteries had gone all over the place and it was a little smashed. This one always bugged me because I knew I put the remotes in a position where they absolutely couldn't have fallen off by themselves, and the second time it happened it didn't fall in front of the sofa but behind. Whatever did it wanted me to know it did it.
So I was in Panama City from 86 to 90. Ultimately I became, I guess you'd call it, a freelance logistic advisor for the military. I knew where things were and that had value. So I was helping this new to the area colonel. We got along well. I provided him with invaluable information that will help thousands. Whether it did I don't really know. Anyway, one night he and I are about a block from the coastline after a long day of information sharing. I'm starting to get an idea of how big the scope of things are from what he is telling me. It's about 2:30 a.m. and this oval saucer shoots out of the water with lights along its equator and underside. I'm shocked by this and comment, "You guys must be serious. I've never seen any military craft like that." I look over to the colonel who is completely dumbfounded. He states that he's glad I saw it too and he was sure as shit the US didn't have anything of the sort. UFOs weren't as popular then, but I guess nothing was without the internet. About 10 years after that happened, he showed up on my doorstep and we laughed and speculated about what happened that night. He's convinced that it was a UFO. And he's the sort of man if he told me the world was flat I'd believe him. Anyway, thanks for listening to an old man's story.
I lived in Panama for 8 years, a nice country, with shitty, rude people, but that's beside the point. I like trail biking because Panama has a nice amount of rugged terrain and you don't have to go far to reach the jungle. So there's one trail I liked out in Gamboa. It was about 18 kilometers long from beginning to the point where it just broke off into the jungle and became more of a hiking trail, but it also branched out to a secondary trail about 30 kilometers long. Usually I stuck to the 18-kilometer because it was just about right for my energy level, and it ended in a nice grassy plain that broke free from the canopy and into a meadow of long waving grass and clear skies. Really quite scenic and nice. Anyway, I've got a few short stories about weird shit happening on that trail. One day, I decided to be a hard ass and pedal all the way to the meadow in a single go. I broke through the tree cover and into the skies and threw open my lungs to catch my breath and instead swallowed the most vile, rancid taste of copper and blood coating the inside of my throat. I was about to faint from how sudden it was and looked around for the animal corpse or something, but there was nothing to see. After about a minute the stench instantly disappeared, and I was able to breathe normally again. I don't know what the fuck happened, but it was really unsettling just how strong and instant it was. 2. I got stalked by animals every so often. It was normal to hear creatures beating around the periphery, but occasionally something would stick with you and follow you for a few kilometers. After the second time it happened, I started going with my dad more often to avoid being caught alone whenever a jungle cat decided to play games with me.
Be me, 16. Summer trip to Panama for a church group type thing. We all have partners and communities assigned to us. My community is stuck in the middle of fuck all. 2 rivers, a farming community, and a baseball team, so I had fun there. First week, get adjusted, cry about missing home in the latrine by self. Feels better. Wave. Host family is cool as shit. Old Panamanian hicks, teach me to swear and use a slingshot to kill birds. Their children all lived on the same hillside, with kids of their own. Familia Estodo. Jpg. Genuinely really nice people, accepting, loving, even joked with us about G.W. Bush being president. Second week, notice something. Every time it gets dark, there's this weird sound. The family usually has bingo nights by candlelight. Play for literal beans, it's just for fun. Playing one night, sound starts up. I stop and look out. No one else does, just gets really quiet. What's that sound? No response. A few of the men exchange looks.
It's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Next day, playing soccer with the grandkids. Side note. Some of those kids were really good at soccer. Anyway, I decide to ask one of the kids about it. I ask him what makes those strange sounds. Sounds kind of like a reverse howl, but really quick.
Algo malo.
Learn to speak English. Carlos. Rar. He tells me it's something bad. Ask what. He's never seen it, says no one has. Good enough for now, Pele. Continue the day, uneventfully. Next day I decide fuck it, I'm gonna ask my host dad. He's old as shit, he probably has a better explanation. Ask him. He looks me in the eye, gets really quiet, dead sober, serious. Maybe this was a bad idea. He says it's okay that I asked, but after dark it's best not to go out. Why? He gets really serious.
You want to know?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Tells me he's seen it before, and not to be afraid. The next day, it's getting dark. Haven't seen Granddad all day, he works his farm all day, so it was normal. He arrives just after sunset. Tells me to put on my boots, we're going hiking. I come out of my room with them on, he's holding a hunting rifle. Oh shit. JPG. Rounds up 2 of his sons, both also packing. They lead me down the hill. Every now and then we stop and listen. Nothing so far. At the bottom of the hill there's a pretty healthy river, we stop. Granddad tells us we are going to wait here until we hear it. About half hour later, we hear it. Weird reverse howl, slightly closer than normal. Ow whoop. It had this weird glottal stop at the end of it, almost like a click. Like a person. The sons are on edge. Granddad is too, but he's more composed. Sons start asking if they can go back. Granddad says to stop being pussies. The moon is out, so enough light is reflecting off the river to maintain sight. See movement on the far side of the bank. Tell them. Sons start to quietly freak out. Granddad peers over, tells them to chill.
Don't touch the water, we'll be fine.
Okie dokie. From what I see, the thing across the river is moving pretty slowly along the water's edge, like it's looking for something. If it notices us, I don't think it cares very much. It continues moving up the river, stopping every now and then. I can see it has forelegs that it uses to churn the earth in front of it every now and again, periodically making that howl sound. Sons are still on edge. Granddad is calm. I'm trying to keep it together, but I had no idea what I was seeing, and his sons were starting to freak me out royally. Every now and again, oh whoop, oh whoop, oh whoop. Suddenly stops, no more sounds. Hairs stand up on my neck. Sons audibly scared. Suddenly, one raises his gun and fires at the thing. Ungodly retching scream. The thing stands up. From what I can see it's much taller than us. I'd put it about 8 feet high. Has hind legs, and the forelegs I mentioned. Looks like horns on top of head. SL Diablo.x. Granddad says we gotta go now, fast. Doesn't seem that mad that his son shot the fucking thing.
You didn't touch the water, did you?
No. Which is Spanish for no. Very calmly, he tells us to stand back from the bank. He pulls a coin from his pocket. Lightheartedly tosses the coin into the river. Turns around like nothing happened. Return to the house. TL. DRI saw my Panamanian host dad barter with a water spirit.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.